It is Thursday the 14th of November and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's meeting of Rother District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Brian Drayson, the Chair of the Committee. The Committee is required to consider the applications that are before it today against national and local planning policies. Where these policies appear to conflict with each other, the members are required to use their individual knowledge, experience and judgment to come to a decision for the benefit of the whole of Rother District. It should be noted that the Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting that the public may attend, while the District Council has a public speaking scheme which allows members of the public and others to address the committee on a particular application. Full details are available on the RDC website. Joined in the chamber this morning by Gillian McInnes, Interim Head of Planning, Kemi Arifi-Viemi, Development Manager, Kirsty Cameron, Principal Solicitor Planning, Sarah Shepherd, Development Management Team Leader, Katie Edwards, Planning Officer, Asma Chowdhury, Planning Officer, and helping with the meeting itself, we have two officers from Democratic Services, Julie Hollins, the Committee Secretary, and Eleanor Drew, who's looking after our webcast. May I please remind members in the chamber to make sure that they turn their microphones on before speaking and to turn them off when they've finished. As we're still waiting now for a replacement hearing loop system to be installed, it's even more important that members speak clearly and directly into the microphone in front of them, just like I'm not doing, and not turn their heads to face the person they are addressing. For those in the chamber this morning, there are no fire alarm tests scheduled for today, so in the event of an alarm, all persons in the chamber are asked to leave by the nearest fire exit and reassemble outside in the front car park to be accounted for. Can I please also ask everyone to make sure that their mobile phones are switched off or at least in silent mode. Thank you. On to the agenda. Do I have your authority to sign the minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 10th of October as a correct record? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Julie, do we have any apologies for attendance, absence and substitutes, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Chowdhury, Ganley and Groner, and Councillor John Barnes is standing in as substitute for Councillor Groner today.
Thank you. I believe there are item 3, there's no additional items and also none withdrawn in 4, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, disclosures of interest and dispensations. To receive any disclosures by members of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interests in matters on the agenda. The nature of any such interest and details of any dispensations obtained. Oh, thank you. Agenda item 6, the planning applications index. The last page of that refers to the applications before us this morning. Right, for each application, the officer will first present their report to the committee. Then, if it is subject to the public speaking scheme, any registered speakers will be invited to address the committee for up to 5 minutes on the previous written submission. Members may then ask questions of the speaker to clarify what has been said. The committee may also then hear comments from the ward councillors before asking questions of the officer on their report and the application in general. Members will then be invited to make any comments they may have on the planning merits of the proposal themselves and debate the issues before proceeding to a vote. The members of the Planning Committee understand that planning matters can be very emotive, especially for those directly affected by the outcome. Nevertheless, I would ask everyone within the chamber to remain calm and courteous throughout the meeting. Thank you. Agenda item 7, application RR 2024/1068/P 13 Staplefield Westfield. The application is for the erection of a single bay garage at front of the dwelling. It's a resubmission of 2023-2511. The reason for the committee consideration is it was called in by Councillor Cooper on the grounds that the proposal is screened and would not impede entrance or exit to the close. This was deferred from last month to allow members to visit the site, which they did on Tuesday. The recommendation from the officer is it be resolved to refuse full planning permission. This application is subject to public speaking scheme. Therefore, after the planning officer has presented her report, the committee will then hear from the applicant, Kelly Henman, and asking any questions of them after answering any questions the members may have of the speaker. We will then hear from Beverly Cooper, the councillor for the ward, and we will then get to members asking questions of the officer. The officer will now present a report, if you please, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application has been deferred from last month's meeting and members visited the site on Tuesday. This is a resubmission. It's been reduced in width by 1 metre from 6.65 metres to 5.65 metres. It has not been reduced in height, however, due to the excavation of the land by 0.45 metres, it would appear to be lower in height. As members will have seen, the site occupies the space in front of the dwelling, which is currently a raised area of lawn with conifer hedge overhanging the site. The garage doors would face the dwelling, with the west side very close to the boundary line and would be overhung by the conifers. The land would be excavated, however the ridge of the garage would measure 5.5 metres in height, measured from the road level. The garage would be finished with dark grey cladding to match the main house. The two lawned areas offer symmetry, with the built form being set back from the road, offering an open character to the cul-de-sac. The garage would sit forward of the building line in a prominent location. As can be seen on these images, the garage would be in close proximity to the hedgerow, which, coupled with the excavation of the land, would likely damage the tree roots. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from the public speaker. We've got one speaker today. You've got 5 minutes to address the committee based on the application. New information cannot be introduced at this stage of the proceedings. Members of the committee may then ask questions of the speaker to clarify something that they've said, and I will stop you at 5 minutes if you're still talking. So if you could introduce yourself, please, and start when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Councillors. I'm Kelly Henham. I live at 13 Staplefield. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. The proposal before you seeks simply to add additional auxiliary building to the property that would well be positioned within the site. The proposal we consider is of a high quality and responds positively to the site's characteristics. As shown on the submitted plans, the dwellings now offer a reduced footprint to previously refused submission. To reduce bulk, the roof has been lowered, the building has been set out in the ground and the footprint reduced. So the roof has been taken down, if you look at the plans. Sufficient space is retained to each boundary so that any impact on planting is acceptable and utilising traditional materials, such as a dark saint timber cladding. The proposal would appear in keeping with the host dwelling, in line with the High Weald Housing Design Guide, and in turn promoting local distinctiveness in keeping with AONB. The officer's report considers that due to the siting of the garage, the open space at the point of the cul-de-sac would be harmed through the reduction of openness. We would wish to point out that although a new element of build form would be introduced, it would sit against an existing row of Leylandi, which serves to ensure the building does not appear stark or overly large. And as you saw from the pictures, as you drive into Staplefield, the Leylandis come right to the edge, so the garage would be hidden behind that. It is accepted that any increase in build form within a site can change the impact. However, due to the urban character of the area, this is being a residential close, which is screened from the north and east, it's considered this would be very limited. However, when considering the surrounding landscape, it's apparent that the principal characters comprise a residential cul-de-sac with mature planting along the boundaries and with residential development of varying styles and size. The addition of a garage is what is effectively a residential area in commonplace throughout the district and would not have an impact on the wider character of the high-wheeled landscape, and is consistent with another garage that's been built in the vicinity, which has gone from a flat roof to a pitched roof. We note the comments from the objectors state that the previous integral garage has been converted. We wish to reiterate that work was carried out before we purchased the property. Also, that it's noted that my partner drives a lorry. I just want to clarify, he drives a Ford pickup truck. We simply now wish to create additional area for covered parking and storage to help us better use the space within the property. We're a 4-car family. My daughters currently park on the road outside the property and on the entrance to Stablefield. We've got trusses in the roof, making our loft space unusable. We note the comments raised in relation to the proximity of the garage to the adjoining evergreen boundary trees. We have no intention of creating a development that will cause loss of these trees, and in this regard we'd be happy to provide further details via condition to ensure that works are carried in accordance with National Building Standard guidelines. We would also stress that the trees are not protected by TPO and that it's certainly not uncommon for ancillary structures to be built close to a boundary planting successfully through the provision of post foundations, etc., to reduce impacts on the root protection areas of the trees. Finally, as noted by the officer, the proposal has received no objections in terms of residential impacts, highways impacts or ecology. It's hoped that given the points raised, members will agree the proposal is an efficient use of this site, which would bring substantial benefits and enhancements, and that there would be limited harm to the wider character of the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's nerve-wracking talking to a group of people, isn't it? So thank you very much for that. So while you're taking a deep breath, they can get ready with any questions they've got of you. Are there any questions for this speaker, please? No, there we go. You got off lightly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. All right, any questions of members for the officer, please?
Ward Councillor.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Opportunity for Beverly Cooper, the ward councillor, to now address the committee before we move to questions of the officer. Thank you. Councillor
Thank you,
Cooper.
Chair. Good morning, everyone. I accept that the officer's report has approached this application as you would expect them to. However, I can't help but feel that a mountain is being made out of a molehill. I would ask you to look at this in proportion to what it is. It's a small garage. Taking a step back, all the land and the majority of this end of the cul-de-sac is owned by the applicant, who could park as many cars as they wished on the land in question without any permission or condition. That would be unsightly, but not unreasonable, and would also negate pretty much all of the objections and reasons for the refusal in the officer's report. It would be sensible to simply allow this garage, which would allow the area to be controlled by condition. The fact is that had this garage been part of the development when it was originally built, it wouldn't have even raised an eyebrow. Can I ask you to approve this with conditions to control its use, and considering the proportionality of the proposal, I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Any questions of the officer from members, please? Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Chairman. It was the problem about the future of the hedge and the root structure. It's at the moment it was a kind of, it may cause damage. Will that hedge be able to survive in any way if that building is allowed?
What I would say is, because the hedge is overhanging by such a large amount, it might be worth sharing the picture again, maybe. It would need to be cut back because it's being built.
Could the officer speak up, please?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, we haven't got the hearing room, so
Sorry. So as you can see on the block plan, it is being built next to the fence. So the hedge is going to have to be cut back. And then because the ground's being excavated, for us there's concerns that that would damage the roots.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Bell?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I mean, it's the Landi hedges are, to a penny really. So it's the job that the hedge is doing is the important thing, and the screening benefit that it will give. And so therefore it is absolutely imperative that it doesn't get damaged. So it would be good to have a way of making sure that whatever it is and whatever the replacement is left in good condition.
Thank you. I'll leave that as a comment, as a question, unless you can come back to
Well,
say.
you did ask me if I had any other point.
To some extent, I was just going to say, to some extent, that we're now talking about, the officer was talking about the branches more than the roots, and you were talking more about the roots and damaging the trees. So either Kemi or Gillian wanted to.
Kemi? I think, thank you, Chairman. My experience is if you have a development of that scale next to the hedges of that nature and that size, chances are you would require to prune it more, remove a lot of the branches, which is likely to then weaken and affect the health of that hedge going forward. Also, the amount of foundation that is likely to be required could potentially harm the health of the hedge. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I'll come to Councillor Stanger, then Councillor Mear. Just before I do, but I thought as a householder, if your next door neighbour's trees and hedges are growing into your land, you can actually trim them. And this is almost the equivalent of these trees are going over onto the land. You're supposed to just give the trimmings back so you don't steal them. Sure. Is my understanding, but that might be totally wrong. Gillian, I'm just going to be told I'm totally wrong.
No, you're not totally wrong. You're absolutely right. I do it myself. Although I ask the neighbours whether I should give them it back, and they don't want it, funnily enough. Yes, so under common law, you can trim a tree or bush or hedge on your side of the property. The idea is you're supposed to hand back the bits. Most people don't want them. I think the issue is that the spread of branches above ground tends to indicate what the root spread is below ground. So in this case, if a trench foundation was to be put in, then the chances are you would cut through the roots right down that side. Now, the applicant did say that they could do, I think they referred to it as a post foundation, but I imagine they mean piled foundation. You know, it is potentially possible to do a piled foundation, but it's extremely expensive. It's very difficult, on a development of this scale, for us to condition the foundations. I'm not saying it's not possible, it's just not normal. But I do think the issue is the reality of cutting that hedge, a Leylandii. I don't know if you see the ones where they are totally hacked. You no longer have a green, outlook. You have a brown, sort of spiky outlook. Obviously, it's a Leylandii. We're not going to put an order on it. We're not going to do anything like that. So, but it is that issue of this is an open green space with this green backdrop. Even without the green backdrop, the officer's comments are this is an open space. It matches up with the open space with the tree on the other side. So that is the key issue. As I say, it's potentially possible to condition, if members were, minded to think that the rest of the scheme was acceptable, to condition the foundations. It's just not a great idea, in my opinion.
Thank you. Sarah Shepherd.
Can I just remind members, though, that this is proposing to excavate to then put the base in. So if you excavate, you are going to cut through the roots, and then you're still doing your foundations below the excavation. So to use piles wouldn't make any
Yeah,
difference here.
sorry,
because you're
thank you,
already
Sarah, that's very,
excavating.
very helpful. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I've got Councillor Stanger, then Councillor Mear, then Councillor Barnes. Councillor Stanger.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was mainly, I think Mary covered the question about the Leylandite. See the gap between the, is it 700 mils at the moment? I think it says on the drawing, 700 mils between the fence and like the edge of the building. Is about right? Is it 700? Would there be possible if it was conditioned to put new trees other than the Leylandite? Or they can't because they don't own the trees? No, I just thought I'd clarify. No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mear.
I think my questions have been largely answered. First of all, just the clarification that this hedge is the neighbour's hedge growing on the neighbour's land. And secondly, that being so, if this potential development were to damage that hedge, then that would be a material consideration for us.
If the hedge will be damaged, as Sarah has indicated, with the excavation of the site for the garage, it will be damaged. If the hedge is the neighbour's hedge, that is and it's damaged, that is a private legal matter between the parties. It is nothing to do with the council, and it is not the physical appearance of the hedge and the existing view of the site is a material planning consideration, but the actual damage issue is not. Damage to property is never a material planning consideration.
Thank you. Councillor John Barnes.
Yes, I think implicitly my question has been answered, but I'm trying to establish who actually owns the Leylandite.
I think I'm going to get a definitive answer from that, or as definitive as I can, by asking Kelly Henman, who owns the Leylandii hedge, please?
No, annoy you.
Welcome back to those who perhaps have been looking at a blank television screen at home for the last half hour. There was a fire alarm in the town hall and we evacuated, but it was almost certainly caused by a power surge, which meant you had a blank screen and not something telling you what was going on. We are all alive, safe and well, and we are resuming agenda item 7, which is, just to remind you, is application RR 2024-1068P 13 Staplefield Westfield. We've just had 4 members ask the officer questions. Are there any other members who wish to ask? Councillor Mear.
Yes, the question is, we are usually told to be consistent in making planning decisions, and I note that we turned down an application for a building on a green corner at Capria, very close by to this one. Is that something we should take into account?
Chair, if the circumstances are very similar and the context is very similar, yes, you can. But as I often say, we need to be a consistent decision maker, as you've identified, but we have to take each site on its own merits at the same time. And it is possible to do both. So I'm not personally aware of the other site, but if it has similar attributes and is in a similar circumstance, then it is something that members could take into account as a consistent decision maker.
Thank you, Gillian. No other questions. Right, the matter is open for discussion and debate. Thank you. Or if anyone wants to move something. Councillor Barnes.
Yes, this is it's a very difficult one, Chairman, because in some ways one has considerable sympathy with the applicant, but one has to consider
to the planning committee. We are having IT problems here at the town hall. We will get through this presentation. If we can't get through the presentation, we'll have to defer this matter, but we will try and get to the presentation at least. This is agenda item 8, application RR 2023-1698P, 38 North Trade Road, land at the rear of Warlands Battle. The proposal is for the demolition of existing garage and erection of 4 detached dwellings with new access road. The reason for the committee consideration today is it's called in by Councillor Field, one of the ward members, on the grounds that the proposal is out of character with Vale Road and overdevelopment in the area of outstanding natural beauty, which is now known as National Landscape. The officer's recommendation is that we grant full planning permission subject to conditions. The application is not subject to the public speaking scheme, so therefore the planning officer will present her report to the committee and will then be asked questions by the committee after we've heard from Councillor Field, the ward councillor. Members will then, after questions, move to a discussion and vote. The officer will now present her report. If you please, Asma. Thank you.
The application proposes 4 dwellings, bungalows, which would be accessed utilising the same access and drive serving number 38. So the existing detached garage would be removed to facilitate that access. The application site comprises a square area of land, formerly wooded, located to the rear of number 38 and 36 North Trade Road. North Trade Road itself is a much longer road consisting primarily of residential development with frontage onto the road. To the rear of the site is Vale Road, also a residential road. As such, the site occupies an urban context within Battle's development boundary. In terms of the visual impact from North Trade Road, the visual impact of the development would not be prominent, being largely screened by the existing properties set to its frontage. The dwelling on plot 1 would be visible, but to gauge its impact, I refer you to the existing garage serving number 38, which we would have seen on our site visit earlier this week. The dwelling on plot 1 would be set much further back and therefore would appear recessive within the backdrop. As such, it would not appear prominent in the street scene. In terms of the visual impact of the proposal on Vale Road, go back to Vale Road, Sarah. The development would be more prominent, but there is minimum distance of nearly 20 metres between the proposed and existing houses. The visual impact along Vale Road is also further mitigated by the existing trees and hedges along the northern boundary of the site, as you can see there in the photo image. In addition, there is sufficient space around the development site such that it does not raise demonstrable neighbour amenity issues. So if we go back to the block plan, we can see the relationship with the surrounding properties. Maybe the location plan is better. There's a lot of space around the application site there, so we can see that it wouldn't have a dominating relationship with the neighbouring properties. As the site is located within an urban context, there is no issues regarding the impact of the development upon the openness of the Highweald National Landscape. Overall, the proposed development is considered to be of an acceptable scale, design and layout, and given the site's urban character within the development boundary, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to questions, we'll now hear from the ward councillor, Councillor Field. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I call this in, as you know, for the reasons which are in the report. I think this is always marginal. You will read that the county ecologist was very worried about this at first, and I think the number of conditions relating to the ecology of the site demonstrate
what a worrying thing this is for the general area. We have already lost trees on that site. They have been cleared. This is, as you will have seen, a sloping site with houses only on the lower side, which is the north side. These are pairs of very traditional semi-detached houses, very much. That is the character of the road. And this row of houses is lower than the proposed development. We have many instances in Battle of houses higher up than the runoff onto the lower houses, causing flooding issues. So the runoff and the flooding is a very serious concern. Battle Town Council, as you will have read, also objects. The character of the North Trade Road is not just the housing along it. There are a lot of estates, about 4, off it, with a lot of housing in them, which feeds into the North Trade Road, which is a very busy road at the best of times. The access proposed would just add to the congestion on that road. So this development is just not in keeping with the road, with Vale Road, which is just housed on one side. And we have heard at an earlier application from Ms McInnes the importance of open space when we're considering planning applications. So, and also we did hear from Ms McInnes at the parish conference, anybody who was there, the importance of protecting the High Weald National Landscape Area. It is a material planning concern. So for all those reasons, the character of Vale Road itself, the potential for flooding, the congestion and the national landscape, I would hope the committee would refuse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Now open to questions of the officer. Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've read condition 9, 10 and 11 about the landscaping and tree. Would that cover the screening at the back end of the Vale Road to be existing and not be removed?
Yes, it would. And there is a further condition, condition 16, which states no fences, gates, walls, or any other means of enclosure shall be erected along the northern boundary of the application site. And the reason for that is to safeguard the landscaping features for biodiversity net gain and to maintain the character and appearance having regard to the street scene within the context of Vale Road. So that was intentional. In order to maintain that characteristic, we are securing the existing hedges and trees along the northern boundary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Barnes.
Yes, Chairman. I've read condition 8 and I understand the reasons why condition 8 is there. I just wonder whether it should be a bit more specific about what would satisfy us, or do we leave it as general as that? But it is quite an important condition because particularly the design of the roofs seems to me out of keeping with the area.
Thank you. Yes, that's a question of is 8 sufficient in its own right to secure the materials that we think are suitable?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions of the officers?
Chair, could I just pick up one issue?
Before we come to you, Councillor Gray, Gillian McInnes wants to make a comment. I'll come to you.
Just to, for the earlier question about the hedgerows, condition 3 is a pre-commencement condition, saying prior to the commencement of development that trees and hedge retention protection strategy shall be submitted. So it's just so that members are clear that actually there's quite a lot of conditions, not just those about going forward, but actually in terms of ensuring the retention. So it was just to pick up that point. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Asma. I just want to ask about the County Ecologist report. At the top of page 22, paragraph 6.34, you say third consultation response, none received at time of writing. I see that in the first 2 consultation responses, they weren't happy. They thought the plans weren't adequate. I just wondered whether you've now received the third response.
No, we haven't, and that was having had chased them as well. It's clear that they were pretty upset with the clearance of the site, understandably as well, you know, who wouldn't be? But we have to deal with the application as it is presented to us. It's not my role to recommend necessarily compensation measures in that particular situation. We would have to assume that clearance was done in a way that met with British standards, and we don't know the quality of the woodland before the application site came to us. So we have to consider the application site on its own merits as it is, as a cleared site, and not where it was previously woodlanded. And it was pre-BNG as well. That's the other thing that I must note.
Thank you. Councillor Mear.
Chair, I think I've answered my own question, really, the permitted development rights for fencing along the northern boundary are proposed to be withdrawn. It would not be possible to have a similar condition between the remaining house at the entrance and the driveway going in, because that would be outside the red line, wouldn't it? So.
Can you bring up the site location plan again?
Do you mean the back of number 38?
I mean between the walnuts and the driveway.
Yes.
Because that would be highly visible from the road, from people driving. That would change the appearance of the area quite considerably if somebody put a 1.8 metre fence up along there.
Along the frontage, you mean?
Along the frontage, they would only be allowed 1 metre, wouldn't
yes.
they? But between the drive and the front garden of the walnuts, that would be highly visible. And insofar as it's not adjacent to the highway, they may do it freely up to 1.8 metres, and that would be very visible. But I think you probably can't, even if you were minded to, have such a condition, because it would be outside the red line area.
You would be right, yeah. We can't control or remove conditions for areas or for sites, adjacent sites that falls outside of the application site area.
Thank you. I think with that picture in front of us there, I think you were more about trying to keep the open look of that area. But yes, it's not in the red line. Councillor Bayliss.
Yes, thank you. I know that we have made a decision around not including any financial considerations within the reports, but unless I'm just missing it, I can't see anything about affordable housing. I mean, if there are 4 properties, one might assume that at least one of them might be affordable.
It's less than 10 units, so no.
No, I think it's less than 10 units, so there's no affordable.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any more questions of the officer?
Could we just say that there is a sentence at paragraph 7.19.
Right, so we'll move on to the discussion. All I was going to start with, a comment from Councillor Field made me sort of double take on the drainage, and I see that condition 6 is a pre-commencement condition on all the drainage aspects, so hopefully that satisfies me on that, but I did have a double take when Councillor Field mentioned the drainage. Councillor Stanger.
Yeah, after listening to everything and reading the report, I'd like to propose to grant full planning permission.
I'll second
I shall put it to the vote then. All those in favour of granting full planning permission subject to conditions, please show. An outbreak of unanimity this morning. Oh, Councillor Cook, sorry. Abstaining, sorry. Thank you. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Brings you on to agenda item 9, which is for members to note the date and time for future site inspections. And I would refer members also to the fact the budget saving paper does mention getting rid of formal organised site visits or pre-planned automatic ones, so take a look at that. So the next site inspection is scheduled to take place on Tuesday the 10th of December, departing the town hall at 9:30, and the next committee meeting will be on Thursday the 12th of December. That brings us to the end of this month's eventful planning committee. Thank you to everyone for their contributions, and goodbye to those still watching online. Thank you.